It was close to midnight. We'd recorded something beautiful, something powerful, something I felt like the world needed to hear, and I was really excited. And then I checked. No audio. 37 minutes gone. All I got was 8 minutes. I had a meltdown. Story time.
Hello, Sally Chibuzie here. I'm the owner and founder of the brand Unshakable. You know the motto by now. Unshakable is a state of mind. Take your state of mind with you everywhere you go. Be unshakable. Be in truth with yourself. Love yourself. Welcome to another episode of Chronicles of Unshakable Truths. Today I have yet another random, unscripted episode, but stay with me. You will love this one. So I'm here all the way in sunny Chorleywood.
Welcome to another episode of Chronicles of Unshakable Truths. And today's episode is unnamed. By the time we get to the end, we'll have a title for it, but it's born out of the fact that I literally have nothing to say. So I'm going to tell you a story about why I have nothing to say. So I'd been to see my friend Dan Ray for her birthday, and we'd made an agreement to do a podcast. The podcast was going to be based on our relationship of over nearly a decade and a bit, and a decade and a half, maybe, and a conversation about how we became friends, which was by virtue of our kids. So our kids went to the same school at the time. So yeah, my daughter and her daughter were in the same class. So we struck off this conversation about what it was like, the struggles of both of us, me a single mom, her being in a time-starved marriage, and just getting by, both of us, because we invariably took on the role of sisters, because we had to bounce off each other. We had to we found ourselves helping each other because we were in an environment that was predominantly white and culturally a little bit different for our children, who ended up being a minority. And we talked about what that felt like, and the obvious struggles of bringing kids up. So this conversation was so interesting, and I couldn't wait to share. And I left Landry, and then I went about my business. I had 1 million other things to do, and got home, and time to edit, get it prepped for my usual Friday podcast release. And I started to, so 7 minutes in, 8 minutes in, everything was going swimmingly, and I was actually quite enjoying it. It was raw, and I was leaving it as it was. There wasn't, I didn't feel a need to edit too much of it, if you like. So it polished itself. It was, it was exactly as it should be. And then, yeah, I probably hadn't realised I'd left the microphone on, because I know I charged it. So, of course, yeah. So that's the pain of what happened. And my meltdown as a result of that was spectacular. Yeah. I thought I would do a reflection, the reality of a budding business. And I say budding in air quotes. I say that because this budding business has been a decade in existence. And yeah, I thought I'd talk about the fact that though it's been 10 years, it's still finding its feet. It's still trying to get kicked off the ground. So some people start off something and it takes off just like that. For other things, it takes a little bit longer. So also it has something to do with organic growth. So with that, it will always take whatever pace it takes. You can't rush these things. So it's also really important to note that this budding business has always been some sort of side hustle. So it's when you're then trying to take that side hustle to the next level where it becomes the actual dream because you feel like it's about time the transition happens, you encounter all sorts of problems, like the ones that I've been facing, which is things like you're not in the mood to talk about it, you're not in the right frame of mind, you can't necessarily articulate yourself, you don't know what the people want, so you put out content sometimes and it's a hit right, and then at other times it's lackluster, so you generally don't really know. So talking about how you find your groove within that space, I would say so there are these struggles. So things like what happened with Lanray, for example, and the microphone. You never prepare. You're never prepared for those kind of moments, but of course they happen, and then you take on the lessons learned. So now I know I have to be anal about my microphones. I have to make sure they're always charged. So yeah, lessons learned. But apart from that, it can be hard, taking yourself, prepping for a podcast, for example. So while I understand that there's an element of it that will come naturally if you're a chatty person such as I am, I have a lot of extrovert in me, so I find it easy, engaging people, asking the right questions, asking leading questions, if you like, things that would generate conversations. But it's not always easy. So I'll tell you, for example, I think I'm a much more comfortable writer than I am speaking. And that's because, the writing has always been the passion. The podcast has grown out of a desire to grow the brand, if that makes sense. So yes, there's a fight between with your comfort when coming out of your comfort zone always leads to imposter syndrome, leads to self-doubt, it leads to lack of confidence sometimes, and I find myself learning to try and give myself grace. What grace has then taught me is that authenticity is key. So I find that conversations flow easier, be it speaking, writing, creating, whatever it is I'm doing, where there's authenticity. So I think there are problems where people suggest to me, oh, why don't you do it this way? Or why don't you do that? Or why don't you get a model to wear the brand? And all these suggestions. Why don't you do this on TikTok or that? And I find myself unable to do some of these things because it's just not me. So what I will not do is I will not shift from what the authenticity is. So what Sally Chibuzie, the owner and founder of Unshakable, is authentic. So it is what it is, and I've come to realize that some people might like it and some people might not. And you know what? That's okay. So I speak for the people who like it. So we go with that, right? Nobody sees the struggle, just the smiley face. Following my meltdown, I've decided that what I'm going to do is rebuild the faith, rebuild the fire. So this is what I decided to do instead. In the absence of a podcast, I decided to go solo and talk about why the work still matters. What Unshakable means, we have the merchandise, we have the podcast, we have the article writing, we have the books. We've got one on the way, by the way, very exciting. I can't wait to tell you guys about that, but not quite yet. So these are the things that make up the brand. And I hope that over time people will get to see more and more of that as I settle into what an Unshakable tribe looks like. Obviously, Unshakable, the brand itself is accepting. That's the wrong word. The brand itself is inviting of anyone, drilling down into what makes you unshakable is what I try to portray in lifestyle. So it's individuality, it's self-love, it's self-care, it's identity, it's walking your own truth. Yeah, so this is how momentum saved me from despair, basically. This is a call to fellow dreamers. I know it's not easy just keep the faith. Keep the faith, keep going, doing what your soul says yes to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a snippet of what Lanre and I were talking about so that you get a little taster of what you might expect to see when we do regroup eventually. So yeah, enjoy. Have a look. Enjoy.
Before Lanre came and we started to have conversations about it, I had particular moments where I was really worried about whether or not putting my black child in a predominantly white environment was actually good for her. I'll say this because on one particular day, she came home and she said to me, the other girl on the playground said that she wasn't allowed to hold my hand because it was a dirty color.
Yeah.
So
Even though I've heard this story so many times, I still always like, it does make me cringe. But yeah,
where do you even begin with that kind of conversation? And I don't.
So yes, having seen that, can you see why I was so upset? But yeah, the moment is over. We keep it moving. So yes, this is what we're presenting to you this week instead. And I finish on that note. I'm Sally Chiwuzie, the host of Chronicles of Unshakable Truths, owner and founder of the brand Unshakable. You know the motto. Unshakable is a state of mind. Take your state of mind with you everywhere you go. Be unshakable. Be in truth with yourself. Love yourself. See you next week.
I don't know if